All right, everybody. Well, after some technical difficulties of the first time we've been trying this new podcast format, we're going to get started here. So I had even kind of created a transition podcast to where I was going to tell you guys we were going to kind of change things up on our MetroEast podcast, and I couldn't even really figure that one out. We're just rolling with it. So you can see. One, you can see some people in this podcast, and I am joined today by one of our coaches, Craig Mayfield. Coach, former member, if you will, and longtime friend at this point. Coach, welcome today. I'm glad that you joined me on this debacle of a first episode of this new format, man.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me.
First of all, it is our first go at this new format. So number one, we get to kind of make up the rules. We don't even have to follow the rules, but yeah. So we kind of we thought it'd be fun, and to talk to our coaches first and foremost. We may even interview some clients on this, and obviously other fitness professionals in the realm. But just kind of talk to our coaches a little bit and have an opportunity to kind of tell a little bit about their story, why they love to coach, how long they've been coaching with us and everything else. So I kind of want to just jump right in. Now, Craig, you had a little bit of a different, process coming in,
Yeah.
and you've been with us for a really long time now. So that's why you got to trump everybody on starting it off. You lead the way because of tenure.
Hey,
But
I've earned it.
tell us
I'll
a
take
little
it.
bit about how you kind of found MetroEast and how you got started maybe as an athlete with us, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. And again, thanks for having me. Love you like a brother. Really honored to have some professional input here as well. I love what you've built at CFME and proud to have been a part of it for so long and going forward. So yeah, you know, my fitness journey goes back a ways from, being a chubby kid that got picked on. I got chased home from school even when I was in grade school, and being chubby, calling myself chubby is being very kind to myself. The fourth grade me would not be able to fit in the pants that I'm wearing now, to give you some idea. And these pants I have to wear a belt with. So it's been quite a spectrum for me over the course of my life. But I hit my growth spurt at the end of junior high, middle school, and I was always fast. Always had some speed, even despite my weight. But then I leaned out and was pretty athletic later on in school and competitive in high school, competitive in college, and just after into adulthood, that competitive fire didn't burn out. And in fact, my daughter was born in 2024. 2003. I was 24 years old, sorry, in 2003. And, her mom was also an athlete. And so we just were active people. And it has just stayed with me. And then, my daughter became part of my motivation as she was going through and developing her skills and trying different sports. I wanted to remain an example for her that, fitness can carry you through. We had some family members that were going through various health issues at different times. And a lot of that was just attributed to sedentary lifestyles and the way they ate and things like that. And so I wanted to be an example for her, but also just, internally, like I just had that drive. And so, I'd been working out at Club Fitness and, was feeling strong and things like that, but was really never pushing myself on the cardio aspect, never really got excited about running and getting on the treadmill or getting on the step mill or anything like that outside of, just getting warm and warming up. And I'd been hearing about this thing called CrossFit for a while. And, back then, I think I first start talking to you in 2013 and joined in 2014. I think I technically joined in like November of 2014. Didn't finish my onboarding until, no. It was 2013. Didn't finish my onboarding until 2014,
Yeah,
correct? Like
something like
January,
that.
February, because I was traveling for work a
Yeah,
lot.
you're traveling.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I had heard your name. I had some familiarity of, who you were, even though we didn't really know each other. You were known, as a trusted business owner, knowledgeable about fitness and, things of that nature. So my plan was incorporate some CrossFit a couple of days a week to meet that cardio aspect.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn a little bit more. It wasn't all the crazy stuff that you were seeing on the videos, the internet, and all of that stuff. There was a lot more to the methodology, and So I started Googling places, and my plan was to look at 3 places. I don't remember all 3 at this point. I do remember that CrossFit MetroEast popped up on the list. Yours was the first place I visited on a Saturday. Had the pleasure of meeting you, like right when I walked in the door. You were the person that greeted me. And some of the things that, when we spoke, some of the things that you were telling me about, your approach to fitness and movement and, some of the things that I was looking for aligned with what I was looking for. And some of the things that I had heard from, a buddy of mine has got 2 master's degrees in fitness and kinesiology. And it was like, all right, I don't need to look anymore. This is my place. And it's been a blast ever since.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I feel like you were probably one of the few people back then. Now we do everything. Everybody goes through like an individual on ramp. But like, did you do your mechanic sessions just one on one? Wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because of your travel schedule and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that was like unheard of then. Back then, it was a little bit of Wild West back then. Like there wasn't that many gyms out there, and so everybody was kind of figuring it out for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so but back then we had an option. You could do a group process, or you could do a one-on-one process. I remember you going through that one-on-one process because you were traveling for work, and yeah, it took a while to get you through them,
Mm-hmm.
but we got it done.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about like how did you then? Because I'm trying to remember how the process went when you then kind of transitioned into coaching.
You know,
I was
I
probably just like, dude, I need some coaches.
Well, no, I mean, it might have been because we did have some coaches that were transitioning. They were,
Mm,
I remember female coaches was getting married and moving.
yeah,
I
that's
think
right.
another coach had, like some family stuff going on, was moving out of the schedule or something. I don't remember, but I do remember. I think it was probably those 2 things intersected. Was, you were gonna have to start taking a whole lot of classes and going back to just being like 12-hour days, and then also just kind of feeling like I could fill a gap, and had some things to offer. I've been the benefit of some really great coaches over the course of my athletic career, and not to say that I am one of them. Although I try, and I've got my own style. I admit that, but to try to pour into others the same way the coaches have poured into me. Like I've got some nuggets that I've gleaned over, the years from my track coaches, my basketball coaches, my football coaches, and just other like men that have had some coaching experience. Like I just had some nuggets that I didn't want to die with me, that felt like I needed to share, felt like I wanted to be able to pass along to some other people that kind of have maybe just this unquenched fire of remaining competitive and trying to get the most out of themselves, and needed, the balance from, because like the personal competition, how far, how fast can I run, how much can I lift, and things like that is a whole lot different than the competitive piece like that I get at work. I'm a sales rep by trade, and there is very much a competitive aspect to that. It's friendly competition, of course. Within a team, who can contribute the most, and all of that stuff. And, can I outdo my numbers from last month, last quarter, last year, and things like that. I just felt like I satisfied and kind of an unmet need in our community as a working professional that also had a drive for health and fitness.
You said that before when we've had discussions like this, that part of your desire for coaching was to instill those nuggets that you've received from other coaches and almost like this pay it forward mentality of how much you appreciated that you received from other coaches, and like if that's a way to pass on even some of their legacy on to others and contribute in ways. And I think what's really cool about that is that for those of us that had those types of experiences with coaches in our past, like, you and I both were track athletes and football athletes and that, and, did that at, some advanced levels. But like, man, those little nuggets that coaches said to you or instilled in you, whether good or bad, right? Like when you were getting dogged, like there's things that stuck with you. And when you were getting praised, there's things that stuck with you. But like those things, I mean, you just don't forget those things.
Hmm.
And I think it's really cool that that's always been a piece of why you coach, is part of that paying it forward. The other thing I would say is that, like, I think there are intangibles that make good coaches no matter the sport, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter like that you coach fitness. If you went and coached volleyball, for your daughter, or you went and, coached football or whatever it is, there are those intangible pieces that you experienced, one that like became part of your personality, became part of your skills and development, that like it really doesn't matter what sport you go coach. It's not about the skill or ability in that sport. It's about your ability as a coach and an influencer. And I see that a lot in you. And,
Thank you.
I think about that a lot. We were just joking with some friends. My daughter actually, let's say volleyball, their coaches have a weekend that they can't coach. They asked any of the parents if they would just coach. Of course, my wife said, well, did you see that? You need to go on and tell them you'll coach. And I'm like, babe, I know nothing about volleyball. Like, I know how to play volleyball at the most basic, like sand volleyball level, right? My sisters played volleyball growing up. My mom, played volleyball. So yes, I know of the sport. I was like, but
Hmm.
I don't know anything about volleyball. And, but I've also coached soccer and I know nothing about soccer. And, I never played soccer. I never, but the thing that happens as coaches though is like it doesn't really matter the sport. It's more about like how you treat people, how you communicate to people, how you motivate and encourage, like all those pieces of the puzzle. And so it's something that I've watched you do over the years and I value a lot. And it's the reason why you're such, we talked a couple months ago during one of our one-on-ones. It's why I value your part in our organization so much, is just how you treat our people. And you do have a lot of skill and knowledge in the area too.
Well, that's thanks to you, man. I've always appreciated how you have encouraged and pushed us all to be better, not just at what we do, not just at our strengths, but of course to limit those weaknesses in order to maximize the experience and the results for our members within the gym. And there is, I mean, that's a reward in and of itself, right? Like, because we're all in there, trying to get better. There's not a one of us that doesn't also participate in the classes and in the programming. And so to be able to win, have those at multiple levels within our organization. Now, that's a motivating factor as well.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, I shared with you guys the other day is, I think, and you're just, the tip of the iceberg when it comes to like talking to some of our coaches over these podcasts in the coming weeks. But like, I don't want to say that our coaches don't do this for fun, because we all have a lot of fun. But
Hmm.
I think that our coaches aren't here just for the fun of it, I should say, right? Like they all possess this mindset, this passion to be really great at what they do. And we probably run a pretty tight ship. We don't, it's not, I will say I have high expectations for our coaches, but will say that they all and you all have no issue meeting those expectations, and you guys all have a desire to do so. And so it makes our job, here a lot easier when we have people that are just passionate about fitness, passionate about helping people, and like passionate about really wanting to get better as coaches.
Hmm.
And so it's encouraging for me. Probably doesn't exist everywhere, and I know that, but I'm grateful for your guys' passion around it. I wanted to touch on something that we didn't talk about. I didn't send this to you ahead of time, so this is just off the cuff.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about being athletes growing up. Obviously, when you were a kid, having some of those, hey man, I just felt like the chubby kid, right? And so then you went in through athletics, and obviously maybe there was a purpose to exercise for performance. Then you have a kid, and now she becomes a little bit of that motivation. But how has your walk with fitness changed over the years? I think a lot of people struggle. I know myself, I struggle with it. You and I have had these conversations. I think there's clients in our gym that
Hmm.
struggle with this. You use the term this sunsetting athlete, right? Because to be honest, my wife asked me the other day, she said, "Do you feel older?" And I said there are things that I can't do right now that I used to be able to.
Hmm.
But, and I said, but I don't believe it's because I couldn't. It's just because I have different priorities and I have different goals. And so I'm not pushing myself. Like I can't do the same thing I did at 25 at 40 without this way different work ethic.
Hmm.
But I don't believe that I can't do the things I did at 25. And so I don't feel older. Like I know I look older, but I'm going to be 40 this year. And like, I feel like I'm still 25. Like now, granted, there's some aches and pains there, but man, you know what competitive sports were. There was always aches and pains, right?
Hmm.
There were just different reasons why those are aches and pains. And so, but we all go through these phases and these seasons. Maybe shed a little light on how your priorities or how have changed with your health and fitness over the seasons in your life.
Well, man, to echo Gina, you look great. Look
It's the
terrific.
beard. It's
I
really
love.
that's it's our beards.
Yes, this beard is hiding a whole lot. I probably need to get on the Coach Josh meal prep train a
Uh,
little bit more regularly, especially during the holidays. You know, that lady downstairs loves to cook,
that's
loves to
out.
bake.
It's out the window for me, man.
Yeah, yeah. So I think at different times the goals have been different, and so that has driven sort of the routine and the path that I followed. And there were a lot of things that were on the horizon for me. Speaking, kind of keep it to, maybe focus this part of the conversation on CrossFit. There were a lot of things, or functional fitness. There were a lot of things that were on the roadmap that I hadn't done yet. When I got into obstacle course racing, like what's the next
Mm-hmm.
race and what's the next time. That was a whole lot of fun. Fitness took a unique turn for me when I had my heart attack a few years ago, and that has changed things quite a bit for me. Obstacle course racing is, I mean, I could do it, but I wouldn't be able to do it at the level that I used to. And so that's the main thing, is the standard of like that I like kind of used to hold myself to. I can't necessarily meet that. Like I don't my just I don't have the capacity to do it. Like I can't go run a 3 hour obstacle course race and expect to have much quality of life after that. My central
Right.
nervous system will be fried. I'll need several days off, and those are actual facts. So I
Yeah.
do have to do things a little bit differently. But even taking that out of the equation, it's like you said, those injuries from high school and college, they do kind of pile up. Like I've got a shoulder that's doesn't work the same, and so I can't bench press or shoulder press or push press the same way that I used to, but I can get a really good workout. And so, for me, just to like directly answer the question, the focus for me is, I don't know when I have grandchildren coming, but I hope at some point they are coming. I want to be able to run around with my grandchildren the same way that I was able to run around with my daughter, my little cousins, my nieces and nephews. In fact, I've got a 3 year old and a 1 year old niece and nephew right now that take some energy. And so I want to, make sure that I've got the energy to run around with them, the strength to carry them or haul them wherever they want to, up the street to the park, or back from the coffee shop or whatever it is. And so it just different motivating factors, and also, just to be perfectly honest with you, I think you've been there. When you're single, it's a little bit different too. There is a desire to look a certain way and have your clothes fit a certain way. And I'm like you. I'm satisfied in that area, and I'm off the market. And so I will go ahead and have a cookie or three. I will go ahead and sleep in on Sunday morning instead of getting on the rower or the bike, or
Ain't
get.
on that grind no more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's not necessary. She loves me for me, and that's terrific.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just different phases of life, and so for me, it's really just about, for now, it's about having the stamina to live my best life with the young children. And, I don't travel the same, but to be like in and out of airports, I do have a work trip next week, and so those are long days. So to have the stamina for that, and to have the runway to be able to have my diet fall off a little bit and not feel like a complete slug, for
Mhm.
the next couple of days. And so, that I'm certainly not as goal driven as I used to be. I don't necessarily have the same checkpoints or benchmarks that I'm trying to check off that I used to. But there are standards that I want to maintain. We shared in the group a couple of weeks ago when we had one rep back squats and deadlifts. I'm blessed that I'm still in the ballpark of a 400-pound squat. My goal, I'm 45 years old. I'll be 46 in March. My goal is to stay in this neighborhood through 50. That's going to take a whole lot of work, not just in the gym, but I'm also going to need to be able to, maintain a relatively stable, healthy diet, which again, not going to be a problem with Tracy downstairs. But sleep is something that has been a challenge for me forever, that I finally feel like I've kind of got dialed in. Maintaining that recovery, that's the biggest piece. And so that's just, and being okay with navigating those shifts and changes, and being able to, lean into the mindset of, all right, I'm not looking forward to this anymore. Like, I don't have this date circled on the calendar for this event, but I do have it in me that I want to get at least 3 great workouts in next week. I've got a Garmin fitness watch that I've got like a lot of, measures kind of dialed in, that, I want to be able to hit this level 3 times a week. And so it's a little bit more of a pragmatic approach. And I kind of have to coach myself that, hey, I stayed up late watching Monday Night Football, but Tuesday's supposed to be a hard day. You woke yourself up, Craig. Go do the work. And and that is a way that I've been talking to myself for a long time, or whatever it is. And I know you can relate to that. It's like, hey man, this is what it is. And we have talked about this because Kobe Bryant said it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't negotiate with yourself. You
Right.
told yourself that this was the jam and this is what it was going to be, and you shook hands with yourself on that. There's no more negotiation. Go do the work. Just go
Right.
do it. And so, and I know what it feels like to, when I let myself off the hook sometimes. And that is a worse feeling than going and doing the work when you don't feel like it. Worse, you feel worse if you don't. So go do it.
Yeah. Yeah, so you hit on a couple things, and I think one, there's a couple of pieces that I can pull out of there, and obviously seasons change for all of us, and I'll kind of dive down that here in a second, but there are two words that I think through. One is priorities, and the other was expectations, right? And so as we go through seasons, we have priorities change, and I had a conversation with a client the other day, and I think they're struggling with where they're at physically. But the problem is that they're comparing themselves to a time in life that priorities were different. And so then they're putting unrealistic expectations on where their priorities are at. One of the things I talk about with clients when they're discouraged that they're not hitting results that they want to see, I just say, I just draw a line on the whiteboard, and I'm like, here's the line. Here's where your expectations are, and here's where your effort's at, right? And it doesn't mean you're being lazy. It's a matter of like they're just not matched up. And so if you have these expectations, but your effort's down here because life doesn't allow you to have this effort up here anymore because you got 3 kids, you got a full-time job that you're working 60 hours a week on, like then your effort can't match that. And so your priorities are over here and your expectations are over here and they just don't line up. And I think that's a really difficult conversation to have with ourselves because we have been goal oriented. We have like pushed the envelope on our ability to perform. We have pushed the envelope on our ability to, have good physique or what, like all these pieces. And as we get older, it's not necessarily that age is catching us. It's a matter of just the priorities are different now. And I think it's really difficult and we struggle with this. And I worry about it honestly, because if I can't get someone to manage those expectations based on their priorities, what ends up happening is they feel like they can't do it like they used to. So they just quit. Like they end up going to zero. And that's scary to me. And so then, what I love hearing is the fact that you have been in this mode of over the years, as the seasons change and as things shift, you've shifted those expectations a little bit based on where your priorities are at. And it doesn't mean, like you said, hey, there's a standard here, but it's not necessarily like, but the standard can change. And I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we put this standard on ourselves. Like, and by the way, I'm so glad you mentioned that you still deadlift a house and squat a house, because I was going to call you out on that. I was going to be like, listen, let me be clear. This guy isn't like sandbagging here. He just squatted close to 400 pounds the other day. So I'm glad you mentioned that. But that's the same thing. I talk about it all the time. One of my goals is I had a son at 22. So he is 17 years old. So he's seen a dad essentially that's been physically capable through his
His
entire
whole
life,
life.
right? Like I could still foot race with this kid, and this kid was fast. He is fast. But I could still foot race with him at 36 and 37. And I still can now. It's just I'm going to get beat, so I don't race anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But
Pop a
just go
hamstring.
out on top, baby. Go out on top. But I also have a 6 and a 7-year-old. And I'll be darned if I'm going to allow, or if I'm going to take away from their experience with me as dad,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't physically perform like I could for their older brother.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's my drive. And so one of the things I say is like, I want to deadlift over 400 pounds for as long as humanly possible. Like, I don't know how long it's going to go. And I know it's going to get hard at 50. I know it's going to get, like in 10 years, can I still do it? I don't know. But that's I'm going to try to keep that number above 400 for as long as I can. Not because I need to lift 400 pounds like at any point. It's just this marker of strength and function that I want to
Mm-hmm.
maintain long term. And so that's the other piece that I hear you talk about is like it's the longevity thing of quality of life, and then also being able to love on the grandkids, love on the
Mm-hmm.
niece and nephew, love on the family, like be able to be functional for as long as possible for the human relationships that you have. And it's less about, you know, the physique. It's less about, granted, like I want to be healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to be healthy for these other people,
Yep.
right?
100%.
And I'm
Yeah,
really glad you shared that.
you made a couple of good points, but yeah, there's also, I feel like there is some utilitarianism that comes along with being a dad, like being the men that we are within our families, and what we want to provide for the people that we care about. So that is part of it, but incredibly a great nugget where you're drawing the line, and here's where you want to be, and here's where your effort is. It's all about your plan. And also what I'm really getting into, what really resonated with me is like having some grace with yourself. So I was watching a video, like a little snippet of a video yesterday from an Olympian. I don't remember which sport she was in, and I don't even remember if she was a medalist, but she was telling about a nugget that she had gotten from her coach. The Olympics is every 4 years. Yes, you find some ways to compete here and there and measure yourself against the competition and whatever, but it's all about the Olympics and trying to stay on track to do that every 4 years and hopefully make the podium. Well, it comes down to, the grace piece. Yes, you have a plan. Of course, she has a plan because she has a coach that's taking her through her training. But having the grace with yourself when you don't always have an awesome day, or when you feel like you know, maybe had a misstep, or even a step back, is, and she broke it down like this, and I know I get long winded, sorry, but she broke it down like this, that, along the way, it's basically kind of like this rule of thirds, and I'm going to paraphrase and not get it all. I'll have to find it and share it with you because I think it was awesome. But you're going to have a third of your days where you feel like crap. You're going to have a third of your days where you are performing above expectations and you are nailing it, and then a third of your days where you meet expectations. That is the course for the improvement. Like that is a reasonable path as you go through your training, as you're trying to achieve a goal or get to a place. If you are over indexing on any of those, if you have, half of your days are terrible, and then a quarter of your days are good, and a quarter of your days are awesome, we need to adjust. And if any of that, sort of, if that pie is cut any differently, then there are some adjustments that need to be made. And so having some grace, and then the self-evaluation over time, not just in the moment, that is a part of a piece to the puzzle, but not all of it. And I think we get into, some of our members get into that, like, man, today was just not a great day in the gym. Okay, cool. But you showed up and you did try, right? Like, how was your effort, regardless of the results, right? Okay. And what about yesterday? and the day before that. And you were here last week when we did that really hard, long chipper that was 30 minutes on a Wednesday. On a Wednesday, you got up on a Wednesday and you went hard for 30 minutes. Hey, give yourself some grace, right? Like that is a part of the equation. It's not just
Mhm.
about the like the result, but what was the output? Did you try hard? Did you work hard? Right? And so, I think sometimes, and it's human nature, but I think sometimes people miss that. They self-evaluate right now, and they put it away instead of cataloging it, and then considering over time, what has my performance been? What have my results been? What has my effort been? And like, I know we've got some systems in place that will allow for, hey, let's review and let's have a look. Not being able to do that, or not willing to do that, or not having the presence of mind to do that. That's why I think the quarterly reviews are great, because that is a help of a solve for that. But then there are some folks that are, they're in a new season, and every day it's just going to be, oh man, that sucked. I would have killed that when I was 20. Yeah, yeah, you would have, but you're not.
Yeah, but you're not. Right. I hope people can understand why you coach for us, because like it's as if you've been just like, like I didn't even give you a script for this. This is amazing. But you're spot on. And like the fact that, this is why you're in front of our people and the way you communicate with this, because it's so good and you're so right in this. And like I think about it all the time, because I know that you and I have gotten through a lot of these, these seasons, and we've made these changes in our own training and our own mindset. And don't get me wrong, like we still push and we still get after it here and there and everything else. But I think sometimes people don't realize you're going to have a bad day, and I'm going to have a bad day. And there's a day that I'm going to come in and I'm going to be like yesterday, I felt like I was 275 pounds trying to jump up on the box, like not lifting up.
Hmm.
I just felt like, man, this is awful. And I think sometimes people just see like the results go into the leaderboard, or the score tracking and things like that we track our results. But you mentioned, like there are resources there. Like there are so many days that I don't feel real great. I modify and adjust accordingly. Now, I may not like tell someone that, like it's just my own self regulation that I'm doing. Now, obviously, our clients have people in place like yourself and our other coaches to be able to help them self regulate things. But I think they always think that you got to be up here. And no, you're going to
False.
be down here sometimes. And other times you're going to be right here. And actually, a lot of times you're just going to be
Gonna be
right
right
here.
there.
You're going to have
Yep.
these really great days, and you're going to have these really down days. And I use the same thing. I always tell clients is like, listen, we're gonna take some steps forward, and then we're gonna take a step back, and then we're gonna take a step forward, and then maybe take two steps back, and then we're gonna take three steps forward. But as long as we're trending in the right direction, like we're okay. And I really like the way you broke that down into like the thirds, right? And that's one other piece too, is the grace aspect. And I said this with a client the other day, is like, you realize like you're the 0.1%. Like, do you realize
Off the
that
count.
most people in the world, everybody else in the world right now, is sitting on their butt?
Hmm.
Like when you show up to the gym at 5:15 in the morning to start warming up, do you know how many people are sleeping? Like, and do you know how many people, they ain't getting up at 8 to go either? And they're not getting up at noon, and they're not going to show up, and they've not been to the gym in 20 years, if at
Yep.
all.
And they're
Like
not chomping at
you
the
are
bit to
the
get off of work
minority.
and go to the gym before they go home. Like, yeah.
And I'm like, give yourself some dang credit, because like I don't need you to do what you did at 20. I want you to do what you're doing right now at 60, and I want you to do it until you're 85
Hmm.
and 90. Like I want you to do this forever. And again, I'm not telling you that you're going to deadlift the same amount of weight you did at 80 as you did at 50. I'm not telling you that. But gosh darn it, we're going to still be picking things up off the floor, aren't we? Like that's the thing, right? And we don't give ourselves enough grace. I'm so glad you shared that, because I think that is a major issue for folks, especially in our situation, I think, because we don't work out, we train. Like, and there is a level of expectation that's automatically put on ourselves when we start, tracking weights that we're moving and tracking times of workouts. And we have benchmarks and we have personal records and we have, but when you start tracking all that stuff, as much as like believe, hey man, these are just data points. Like let's just continue to track the data for us so that we can continue to track these things. And if we see some trends, maybe we need to make an adjustment, like you said. Or if you have a data point that you want to improve, maybe there's some additional things that we need to do. But really it's all just tracking data points. And so when you step on the scale that month, it's just a data point. And next month is going to be a different data point. And if we want to see changes or adjustments, then maybe we'll make an adjustment there. All we're doing is tracking data. And I wrote about this, and I quoted you in the article actually before we even got on this podcast, and it'll go out in a couple of days, is that you say this a lot. You say comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
Can you highlight that? I know we're maybe up against the clock. Are you good on time?
I've got another few minutes. I do have, yes.
Okay. You're going to tell me about comparison is the thief of joy, and then we're jumping off. We have
no problem. Yeah, I think, that has taken on, that is something else that has kind of taken on different meanings for me over these different seasons of life. Back in high school and college, not as fast as that guy, not as tall as that guy, not as strong as that guy. Well, should I just give up? No, because there's something that I do better than him, something I do better than him, something I do better than him, right? Let's maximize that. And it's the same thing, it's the same thing now, but now it's what I used to do. Like kind of the trend of the day is like, oh man, I used to bench 315 pounds. That would crush me right now. Like my right arm wouldn't be able to handle that. You know what I mean? And, so what am I supposed to do with that information? Quit? No, not at all, because there still are things that I can do that I can still go get a great workout and feel awesome about myself, about the work that I did, about, maintaining my health, maintaining my fitness, and the future me as well. Like that is something that I certainly don't want to lose sight of. James Clear says every day that you get up and you do one of your positive habits, that's a vote for the person that you want to be or become. Right. So if I want to be a healthy person, what am I going to do? Get up and work out every day. Right. If I want to maintain like some mental sharpness, maybe I'll do crossword puzzles or Sudoku every day. Right. Like you cast a vote for who you want to be, not who you were. You think about who you were. That's awesome. If you've casted those votes every day, guess what? You are still that person. So the comparison that you're making isn't necessarily valid. And I really where that came to me in relevance to CrossFit MetroEast is, like you mentioned, the leaderboard. If you're constantly looking at the leaderboard for, man, so and so always beats me. Like actually, I lived it. Our old buddy Nate used to always beat me when there was running in the workout. Nate was a freaking awesome soccer player, and he played for a long time. Of course, his cardio fitness was better than mine. I was a college football player, and I hadn't played for like 10 years. So yeah, he was going to smoke me every time because he had just finished playing and was still playing like intramurals or something like that. So yeah, he was going to smoke me. Am I going to not show up on those days because Nate's there? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I loved him. He was a good friend of mine. I wanted to see him. I hated that he was going to beat me, but he was going to make me try harder as well. Now I'm kind of getting off track now, but yeah, I mean, you got to focus on what you can do and the person that you want to be, and like take some satisfaction in that.
Yeah, that comparison on the leaderboard is huge, and people have talked about like, well, I'll just get rid of the leaderboard or whatever else. It's like, no, I mean, you can, but the reality is like it's our own mental issue of like we're diminishing what we've accomplished based on what someone else has accomplished, and that other person's priorities, expectations, effort, energy levels, everything is different than mine, right? So if we're not the same person, why am I taking away from what I've done based on what they've done, right? And yeah, so you've always shared really well. All right, man. Well, hey, we got to jump off here. I know we could talk for a whole nother 45, 50 minutes anyways. But this was great. I really appreciate you jumping on for this first kind of edition of this, and look forward to having you again soon. But have a great rest of your day, everybody, and thanks for joining us.
Have a good day. Thank you very much.
All right,
See you.
We'll see you, dude. Thanks, man.